Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. I'm so glad that you're here. And you know something we talked about in this I got to tell you, that last program we did, it really hit into something because I didn't realize how profound some of our material was. You know, I was seeking God when we wrote your ultimate life strategy. And then I was just kind of like, we were talking about our upcoming dream trip where people are going to be dreaming the dream that God gave them and learning how to manifest the dream. You were born with a purpose for this hour. I don't care what's going on the earth. Someone said to me, are you upset about what's going on in the world? No, I was born to be exactly the age I'm at, doing what I'm doing. God planned my time in history, and yours too. The question is, are you doing what your unique factor dictates? What is unique factor? It's the intersection of your unique design, gifts, talents, abilities, age, temperament, nationality, gender, skin color, all those factors meticulously woven into the design features of who you are for a purpose. When your design has been matured, your character and your gifts come to fruition, the knowledge that God wants you to have matured, and you're doing the thing you're supposed to do, you are at the place where you have a unique expression, a unique factor, a unique style of what you do, a unique way that you do it. And you have to be around people that can complement that. If they're not complementing it, then God has given you people that are developing it. Here's a big aha. The people in your life that God puts there that are adjutants and irritants and opponents could be the tools God is using to refine your unique development. With that thought in mind, I have certain people refining my development. They are to the left and right of me. Mercedes Sparks.
Is he talking about me right
Mercedes
now?
Sparks is here. My son Carl is here.
Hi, America.
There are people who are there to refine you. And there are people, as I believe with Mercedes and with Carl, who are there to complement you. They help you get where you've got to go. People are sometimes doing a little bit of both. That's called married life. 35 years, I'll tell you, there's sometimes when I believe my wife is refining me and maturing me. I had an interesting broadcast yesterday my son helped set me up on. And the guy who was interviewing me doesn't have the highest opinion of women, evidently. He didn't believe that women actually could ever teach a man, educate a man. And in my experience, I've had times when Annabelle has heard God where I've missed God, and she'll tell me what she's hearing. And if I don't listen, I pay a price. And I knew. And he'd yell, if I start moving from being an alpha male to being a beta, he'd yell, beta. And my big fear was he would actually yell beta at some point. And he did right in the middle of the interview. And I kind of egged him on. I said, that sounds beta, doesn't he? He goes, beta. But listen, you need to hear everybody's voice. Is that not right, Mercedes? Sometimes you need to be heard too.
Sometimes. But my favorite when you were doing the interview was he said, do you think a woman should drive a man? And you were like, if the man's told her to drive, you know, because I'm thinking about you, I'm like, I drive you. Annabelle drives
me. All the women, my organization is run by women anyway. It's like, yeah, but I chose them. I picked them for the job.
Yeah. No, you did. You had some amazing answers. It was really fun to see you kind of like, ooh, you know.
It's going to be fun to slice that one up.
Yeah, totally. And if you're watching on the podcast, you see we switched some things up today. Which I really feel like this is like a real news anchor type of a setup right now where it's like, and here's Carl with sports. You know, it's really funny. I like it.
No, it's true. This is different today. This is more like we do when we're doing election coverage because we're this and then we got throwing it over to somebody else. Older people, I'm going to show you, we're going to have experts coming on this trip to talk about how to actually increase your strength and mental acuity and focus. You don't have to fatigue out like old body parts. There's a way to renew your strength on the internal organs, including your brain function.
That's right.
And we're looking at some really exciting speakers that are going to be coming in. But we're going to cover finances in the midst of shaking, in the midst of bank failure, in the midst of all this digital anxiety about digital currency. Somebody's making money. It might as well be you. Why aren't you the head and not the tail? Why aren't you above and not beneath? I'm going to tell you your problem is my people perish for lack of knowledge. People don't know what they don't know. Dream Trip helps you find out what you need to know to fulfill the dream God gave you. We don't surrender our life to the devil. We make the devil serve the purpose of God. That's what the Bible does. It causes the devil to serve God's purpose. Now, moving in a place where you're in the flow, the hard part in our diagram is often, as you know, we have your faces in the future, and then you're down here trying to catch up. The path to catching up to your face in the future involves a certain thing, and there's several aspects to it. Goal clarity, the right mentors, the right associations, the right plan, the right team. But even so, you yourself have to manage your own. And really, how do you, we Christians use the term a lot, but the secular world uses it also. It's learning how to flow with the moment and flow in the Spirit. Carl, talk to us about the factors of the phenomena called flow, because I think we're going to focus on that in our dream trip.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to. I'll answer the factor aspect first, but then I'll go into the actual 4 stages of the flow cycle. So there are 3 primary things that you need for at least micro flow. The very first thing is clear goals. Okay, that's number 1. Think of it like a thumbs up, right? Clear goals. You know if you made it, you know if you didn't, it's clear. And the main thing on that, more so than goals, is clarity, knowing what needs to happen in order to fulfill the goal that you've set for yourself. So clear goals is number 1. Number 2, it's a nice little L right here. This reminds me of the XY graph, which I'll be showing you in a second. That is the challenge and skills ratio needs to be balanced, which means that you need to have a skill set that adequately meets the challenge. And ideally, the challenge actually is slightly above your current skill set. So it's going to force you to focus on what you're doing in real time. And it also will change the objectives based on what your skill set is. So it stretches you. And again, ideally, the idea is that it's about 4% above your current skill set ability. The third thing is immediate feedback. This is critical in order to shorten the feedback loop, so that way you're getting real-time information, knowing that if I push this forward, or push it back, it's going to move in real time. I'm not going to push it forward and have to wait for it to set to see if I've actually done anything, because that type of delay is not going to give me the feedback that I need in order to know that what I'm doing is working. So those are some of the primary factors that go into flow. Now, flow is a 4-stage cycle. I'm going to jump up onto the whiteboard and show you what those 4 are. Always, the flow cycle starts over here with struggle. This is an incredible Sharpie. This is such a strong Sharpie.
That's a powerful, you're not going to struggle with that Sharpie.
Hey, there we go. All right, peanuts. No, I'm just kidding. All right, after we've struggled, this is actually going to help us cultivate the neurochemistry that's necessary in order to tap into flow, which is phase 3. So we got phase 1, stage 1 is struggle. Stage 2 is release. Now, what is the release? That's when you actually can take a moment and step away from the process. You can step away from the project. You can step off of the struggle bus. What does that actually look like? It looks like taking a walk. That might be doing a little coffee break, doing a tea break, spending some time in nature, maybe spending some time in the Word, maybe meditating, maybe doing a little bit of light cardio, something that's not going to completely pull you out of where you were, but it's also going to allow you to engage your body, because as the body moves, the brain grooves, and that's what we're trying to get to. After you've struggled, after you've released, and you come back to the project, it's probably realistically going to take anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes, but after you've struggled and you've released, now it's time to flow. This is the thing that everybody's focused on, right? Everybody wants to get into flow, but so few of us are willing to struggle, the necessary struggle, in order to build up the neurochemicals to tap into flow. A macro flow experience for sure requires a great deal of struggle. Now, what happens after you flow? You have to recover. You have to recover. So that's stage 4, recovery. Now, it's been my experience that the vast majority of peak performers are not interested in recovery. What they want to do is they want to go from high place to high place. This is a nice little example right here. So what people want is they want the high place, they want the mountaintop experience, they want the peak experience. They don't want to go through the valley in order to get there. So how do we get to these high places? How do we get to these peak experiences? What we have to do is we have to go from peak through the process, process, and you need to trust the process. Now, at the Dream Trip, I'm going to go into some active recovery protocols. I'm going to talk about some of the things that are kind of the shiny objects that don't necessarily help as much as they should, how we need to get adequate rest, because if we're ever going to tap into macro flow, we need to be able to struggle. And in order to adequately struggle, we need to be well rested. We need to be recovered in order to be able to tap into that next flow cycle. So this is very simply the 4 stages of flow. Starts with struggle, then release, then flow, and then recovery. Now, earlier I mentioned the 2, right? First thing is clear goals, and the second thing was the challenge to skill ratio. Now I want to show you what that looks like a little bit. Beautiful XY graph here. Now on the bottom, we'll have your skill set, okay? So that's going to be skills. And as you go through life, you're going to continue to accrue more and more skills. So think of this as like 1, 2, 3, all the different skill sets that are going to help you in your life. On this, the y-axis, this is the challenge graph. And if I had a little bit more time, I would actually do different color gradient here, so that way you can see where it's very little struggle, very little challenge. It's really not that big a deal. What does that actually lead to? That leads to boredom. So right down here, we'll have a nice little flow channel right here. And what is boredom? Boredom is when you are you're not meeting the challenge with the skill set that's necessary. You have a skill set that's greater than the challenge at hand. So you're just gonna be bored. You're not really gonna care. You're gonna be kind of apathetic. Now, what happens if you have a high challenge with a low skill set? Anxiety, right? That's when you are not adequately prepared for what's going on. That's when you don't have the necessary skill set. This is the area for improvement. Now, the space between this little line right here, this, my friends, that's our flow channel. So when we have the necessary skill set in order to meet the necessary challenge, we get to flow our way up and out.
I really like that. And this is so powerful. I want to go back to the previous flip chart and color in the four, because I don't think you can see them with the green and the red. You got that powerful black.
You want different colors?
No, any color, but just so you can see it, because I don't think the camera picks it up. You know, but color in the numbers is what I'm thinking. So the struggle is where the is where your skill ratio wants to be higher than your present ability, so that you're getting that whatever that physiologic chemical flow going. Like, oh, this is not boredom. I'm really stretching, but I can do it.
Right.
Then it takes 5 to 25 minutes of release. I don't understand. That's the part that's the hardest for me. What are you talking about? 5 to 25 minutes to release what? Stress?
It's actually to remove you from the situation. So as you're in this struggle phase, right, you're going to be having these neurochemicals that are constantly popping up. So it'd be like some of your stressors or your cortisol levels. These are going up because you don't necessarily have the adequate skill set to meet the challenge. So you need to take time away. You need to separate yourself from the situation. You need to take a minute, take a breather, and then after you've done this release, it's likely going to take you about 5 to 25 minutes to tap into flow once you've re-entered the struggle phase.
Well, so suppose I'm Larry Bird playing basketball.
Sure.
I'm struggling because I'm up against, a player that's like better than me or as good as me. And that's a classic Larry Bird thing.
Right.
So I'm struggling, but then how am I ever going to get to release in the middle of a game? I'm on a stage, or I'm at the event. I've got 8 hours. What do I do? How do I get this thing to work for me if I'm in struggle? And how do I release in order to get into my flow?
Well, what you do is you add layers of chaos and you innovate. So that adds additional struggle for other people, but for you, that's your release, because you're stepping out of the struggle as far as where you were, and now your ideation is allowing you to see things clearly, so now you can tap into flow. So that's one of the ways that you do it personally. Other people, as far as a release with Larry Bird, he might just take a quick breather. And by breather, I mean he might just go on the sidelines and get a sip of water. And that's his recalibration moment. So that way he's stepping out of the struggle. He's no longer on the treadmill, right? He's taking a step back. And then when he gets back onto the floor, he's able to play. He's able to tap into flow. Also, a lot of people, athletes especially, when they're doing their warm-ups, that's them doing the struggle phase initially. So they're going into that struggle phase in order to build up that neurochemistry, and they go back to the locker room, they have their release, and they get back on the floor, boom, it's time to flow.
Now, and you made a great point about recovery, being that if you don't if you don't take the time to recharge, to renew, you don't get a rhythm going, then you could burn out going into that struggle, working to get in flow, constantly staying in the struggle and creating your own kind of release mechanisms to calibrate and get into that channel. You actually can burn out and dissipate your overall strength, right?
Absolutely, you can. And if you're not willing to take the necessary steps to actively recover, then you're not able to adequately struggle the next time because you actually aren't fully there. A great example for those of you at home, if any of you ever work out and if you do your morning workouts, right, but you haven't slept well, how well is your workout actually going to go? Like, yeah, you might be able to get through it, but are you actually really showing up for it, or are you just kind of struggling your way through it? You're just doing the necessary steps, not actually really tapping into microflow. And then what? You have the rest of your day to look forward to. So you're probably going to likely stay in that struggle area because you haven't given yourself adequate recovery and you also haven't done any type of release activity, which low-grade activity itself can be a release mechanism.
All right, flip over because we're running out of time. This program's almost over. Now we're looking at the dream trip concept here, which we're going to be doing. Dates for that, Mercedes?
June 20th, 21st, 22nd in Carlsbad, California. You want the link too?
Yeah.
LanceWallnau.com/dream trip. And Carl will be talking a lot about flow there as well and helping you tap into your flow channel.
Matter of fact, we have a really cool commercial that you filmed out there, and you were in flow because you had to innovate it, improvise it, film it, record it, stuff that takes days to be able to do. You did with a camera on location. I'm so impressed. You guys watch the Flow Mercedes commercial on the Dream Trip. Watch this.
You know where I am right now? Carlsbad, California. Everybody's been asking, when are we doing another Dream Trip? Dream Trip 2023 is happening here, baby, at the Westin. It's coming up in June of 2023. You are not going to want to miss this trip. I want to show you everything that this hotel has to offer, and I hope to see you there. Check out the dates on the screen because you don't want to miss this. Come on! Right behind me is a beautiful pool overlooking the mountains. Check out this gym. They have treadmills. They've got ellipticals. All right? Don't be thinking this is a break. We're just working on the mind. You can come also work on your body. Outdoor fire pits. Great place to sit and socialize. They've got golf right across the street. The spa, we don't want to forget that. And again, for those of you with families, right across the sister hotel, the Sheraton, has a giant water slide for families. Come on in. We're going to go through things like your personal history map. What are the things that are holding you back right now from going to the next level? We look at your gifts, talents, and abilities. We're going to be looking at things like relationships in your life. And so it's a wonderful time to go deeper in the material that Lance teaches during the Dream Trip. As you watch everybody at the beach and the waves roll in, Carlsbad has so much to offer. So make sure that you also stay a couple extra days and enjoy the locale. That's a wrap. We showed you the whole hotel. We told you about all the great things Carlsbad has to offer, but one of the best things is the Dream Trip itself, the relationships you're going to build there, the content you're going to hear from Lance, and the breakthrough that you're going to experience. So join us here in Carlsbad at the Westin for the one and only Dream Trip. Check the link below, and I can't wait to see you here.
Wow, and I just want to say that I don't know why we all laugh when we see Mercedes on a bicycle. It's
the unexpected.
It's the unexpected.
Yeah,
Humor, comedy is all about what you don't expect. Mm-hmm. But what's really funny is you're holding your phone in your hand, but it looks like a latte, and it looks like you're literally working out while you're sipping your Starbucks latte, which is so Mercedes, if you know her, sipping a latte while she's working out.
You know, so Chelsea and I went out there and filmed that, and I've watched a lot of like YouTubers and stuff, and they use their phone as a mic, and so we're like, let's see how this sounds. So I literally spoke all that great audio that comes off of my phone, and Chelsea filmed with her camera, and then she just synced them up, and I was so impressed with the sound quality. I was like, oh, we got to do this all the time.
It really is impressive.
Honestly, I'm serious about this. Chelsea and Mercedes together just created a commercial other people would pay $100,000 to a company to create for them. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, that's talent.
Well, actually, I haven't submitted the bill yet, but
Well, actually,
Hard cut.
now that I think about it, sending you guys out there to Carlsbad was the bill. But Carl has done something really interesting here. We got 5 minutes left. I want to talk about the challenge to skill thing. This illustration he's got here, if the cameraman can go to the flip chart, which is where I'm pointing. So you've got that challenge to skill ratio. And I leaned over to Mercedes and I realized that boredom thing is rather significant. And of course, anxiety, I live in anxiety a lot because I love the adrenaline rush of the unknown. I mean, I create chaos. Kim Clement and I were noting that the thing we had in common was we loved uncertainty because prophetic and interesting things happen in the area which you don't control. You discover stuff. But I want to point something out. He had a dog that was sent to him for Jane called Henry. And Henry was an Alsace-Lorraine attack dog, $75,000 Manchurian candidate dog, which had a certain German instruction that when it heard that word, it would go boom for the jugular. It would leap 15 feet if necessary to attack. I was just hoping that the German word wasn't Gesundheit or something like that, which could really be. Sorry about
Schnitzel, Henry, Schnitzel.
So I was there when Henry arrived, and Henry was like a velociraptor in Jurassic Park. Remember how in the opening scene with Steven Spielberg, you see the leaves rustling, and they had like a little, lamb or a goat tied there, and like the leaves would rustle, and then suddenly, so the box was trembling, and inside was the killer dog, Henry, who was there to protect Jane. And it was important that when the door was opened that day, that the first face that the dog saw, this is like the psychological training of these dogs, is amazing. He will bond with whoever's face is there. And so the instructors were off to the side. They opened the door, and Kim was very upset about this because he wanted that dog to respect him. In fact, he messed up the dog because he wanted the dog to respect him when he spoke, not just Jane. But the dog wasn't trained for Kim. It was trained for Jane. That's why he got the dog. So the dog bonded with Jane to protect Jane. Now, I get a call. I find out, Lance, we have a very serious situation. Henry. I go, what's happened with Henry? He's depressed. I go, how can the dog be depressed? What kind of, he goes, he's depressed because he's bored. He is built for high tense drama. He's built like Jason Bourne. He's programmed to go rappelling off of cliffs and stuff. And so the dog is bored, and because the dog doesn't have challenge, it's depressed. We have to actually give the dog to, it was Senator Mike Cross's son, Caleb. And his son was doing rescue work and rappelling off of cliffs and going to, disaster sites where planes have crashed and stuff. And the dog would go through the rubbish and through the wreckage in search of the bodies, so to speak. And I said, well, what happened? He said, the amazing thing is, other dogs were on the backpacks of their owners going over the edge of cliffs to go down, and they were urinating in the packs, getting the backs of their owners wet because the dogs were petrified because they're literally going over. Henry was like thrilled. Finally, he's doing what he's born to do, the challenge. Henry's like, he excelled on every danger test and never once lost control because he was programmed for challenge. So a human being can be, I imagine, Carl, Mercedes, that if the challenge isn't in your life, if you don't have the anxiety of being stretched, you actually could be suffering from needing medication and having depression and feeling like you're moody. How do I know that it isn't because of boredom in your life and that you're not properly being challenged? Isn't it possible? I submit it to both of you. What do you say?
I think everybody's created with a different purpose, right? So Henry had a unique purpose. And I think if you're not tapping into that God-given design, that I think, you have the potential to be bored. Absolutely. I would agree with that.
So if you don't have anxiety, so this is weird, Carl. So be anxious for nothing, the Bible says. And yet, if you don't have some level of anxiety, you don't have some challenge. Is that true?
I would say in part. There's a number of things to unpack there. One of them is I don't want to conflate the idea that there are no mental illnesses. So I don't want to say that people who have depression simply don't have adequate challenge or they're living in anxiety, because I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, the last thing is another challenge like that.
Yeah, because that's quite challenging in and of itself. I also do believe that a great number of people in my generation don't have a necessary challenge from outside sources, so we find internal challenges that we want to overcome. I think that's also one of the reasons why so many young people are taking on politics, because we have these perceived external challenges that are existential in nature that we're not actually getting in our everyday life. So back hundreds of years ago, we had to actually go out and forage for our food. We actually were facing off against the animals that we were going to eat. Some hunters still do, and thank you for that. But nowadays, we have DoorDash, we have Postmates, we have our food delivered to us. We don't have these same inherent challenges that previous generations did. So we actually are not developing the skill sets to meet the challenges because we no longer have those challenges. So like you said, we now are adopting or taking in these challenges that may not have been ours to begin with.
All right, so my takeaway for you folks that are at home is that being able to get updated on the call of God, on the challenge that you have right now, to if there's anything that Jesus gives us, it certainly is a life of adventure. And I'm going to make sure you're living the adventure that God has for you, that you're maximizing 100% of the raw material God gave you. But in addition to that, I want you to be able to meet the people where what you carry in you will resonate with what they carry. And so the body comes together in a very mystical and beautiful way. As the body comes together, it brings clarity and pieces come into place. We plan on doing a dream trip where it's very likely that you'll have divine appointments all over the dream trip. It's one of the things we pray for. They happen. Divine appointments, meeting the right person at the right time, having the right conversation, because your missing piece is probably something Jesus is going to give you through somebody Jesus sends into your life. And a dream trip's a perfect time to meet with other dreamers, to find out where the flow is in your life, to be able to define what it is that you need to know, what do you need to do, what the missing piece is that you need to grab. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/dream trip. No place else. I mean, I do news, I do speaking, I go out, I do events with my friend Mario Murillo, and they're for me, the place where I'm stretched doing those things. But this is a 2-day intensive. It's like being in an incubator. It's not a 1-hour message and I leave. It's 2 days and 2.5 days of intense marinating in a certain kind of environment. It has a different kind of a prophetic anointing. And that's the reason why I want you guys to go to lancewallnau.com/dream trip and make sure that you're registered to go. And if you can't go for some reason, or if you're not going to be able to do it, I'm not going to tell you get the same experience watching it, because you don't get to meet and interact with the people and you're not in the actual environment. But I have plenty of testimonies of people that have said that they've been transformed hearing something. Because listen, I only met Derek Prince once or twice. How many? I don't think I ever met Kenneth Hagin, but all of them left an imprint and an impartation by the books that they made and the programs they did and the audio I listened to. So there's a way that can happen. But if possible, get to where you can get laying on of hands on you. And that's where we're going to go. Final thought, Mercedes, before we sign off?
Final thought from me is, I think if this is resonating with you, it's time for you to break out of boredom and become a flow rider. I really like that. That's the word of the Lord.
A flow rider.
A flow rider. You jump on that flow. So Carl's going to be talking a lot more of this at the Dream Trip, and you should come and see him. And all of us, like Lance is saying, join the tribe. Jump in. Meet the tribe, join the tribe, and we'll have a tribal flow ride. LanceWallnau.com, flow ride. Flow ride. Isn't flow ride in your toothpaste? LanceWallnau.com/dream trip. We're going to see you tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are